Hi, I'm Regular Zach, and this is my Aetherdrift set review. We are on the final video, and this is all the colorless cards in the set. Once again, we are going to be talking about only the limited format, so that's sealed and draft. That's all we're talking about in the context of all these cards. And we are using a rating scale, just a classic one, A to F, just to talk about which cards are great. The scale is A's are bombs. These are the best cards. These are ones that you want to first pick and like really want in your deck. B's are these are great. These are really good. When B's get past you, you're like, whoa, is this open? I think I should take these cards. C's are like fine. You know, these are good. These are solid. They fit in your deck. You're not super enthused, but they're good. They're solid. D's are bad. You're not really happy with these cards. You really hope that you don't ever have to put these cards in your deck. And if they are in your deck, you're like, wow, something really went wrong because this is bad news. And then F's are absolutely horrible. You should not put these in your deck under any circumstance, like whatsoever. They're terrible. Also, we're looking at the cards from common, uncommon, rare, and then mythic rare, as well as all the lands. And we'll be starting off with the artifacts at common, lowest mana value to highest mana value. We're starting off with Scrap Compactor, which is 1 mana for an artifact. It has 2 activated abilities. You can pay 3 mana and tap it to sacrifice this artifact and deal 3 damage to target creature. Or you can pay 6 mana and tap it and sacrifice it to destroy target creature or vehicle. This card looks bad. This is like a D. This is a D removal spell. It's like 7 mana generic to kill anything, but you never want to pay that much. It is an artifact, so maybe it'll be helpful in some of your artifact decks, but I think you really are not happy to play this card, and this is bad. D, I hope I never have to play this card. Next up, our next card is Guidelight Matrix, which is 2 mana for an artifact. When this artifact enters, draw a card. All right, so that's good. We do get to draw a card off of this. And then it has 2 activated abilities. You can pay 2 mana and tap it. It says target mount you control becomes saddled until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. And you can pay 2 mana and tap it, and target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Okay. All right, I see what you're doing. So we get to play this. We get our card back right away, so that's super helpful. And then the most important thing is probably just like turning our vehicles into creatures. That's what is most helpful, I think. But just 2 mana being able to animate your vehicle or get some extra value out of your mount instead of having to have creatures on the battlefield. It's kind of interesting. It does give us our card back right away. I don't know. I can see playing this card. I'm not going to be super surprised if this is on the battlefield, but I still think this is like a C-. Like, we aren't stoked to play this. But I don't think it's a complete disaster if we do, but that might change as the draft format goes on. All right, next up is Ticket Tortoise. It's a 2 mana 3/1 artifact creature turtle. It has Defender. A 2 mana 3/1 with Defender. Interesting. When this creature enters, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you create a treasure token. Okay, 2 mana 3/1. If you're on the draw, you get a treasure token. All right, I don't hate that. It also crews everything. Basically, this crews vehicles really well. I think this is probably like a C. I don't hate this. If you get the treasure token, it's great. If you don't get the treasure token, I think it's pretty bad. I'm not like super stoked putting this in my deck, but if we need to crew stuff and you're kind of in a bind a little bit, I think it's kind of interesting. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. I think that's what a lot of these artifacts are going to be like. Spoiler alert. Up next, we have Walking Sarcophagus, which is 2 mana for a 2/1 artifact creature zombie cat. It has Start Your Engines, and at max speed, this creature gets +1/+2. So it becomes a 3/3 at max speed, but it does Start Your Engines on turn 2, which I do think is a really good thing. So this is like a C. I can definitely put this in my deck. I can use utility with it if I don't have other ways to start my engines this early. This card can help. There's light cat synergies, more zombie synergies, but ultimately, like, it's an artifact that starts your engines. That could be really helpful too. So yeah, I like this. This is a C, but not amazing. Next up, we have Aether Jacket, which is 3 mana for a 2/1 artifact creature Thopter. It has Flying and Vigilance, and you can pay 2 mana and tap it, sacrifice this creature, destroy another target artifact. Activate only as a sorcery. Okay, I like this one a lot better than the Scrap Compactor thing. It's a 3 mana 2/1 Flying Vigilance, so you do just get to peck in there. And if you ever have to blow up some giant artifacts, you can. All right, this also seems kind of like a C. Maybe in some of the artifact decks you're more interested in this, or against them even. But being able to peck in, I don't know, it is still like a 2/1, so it dies to Thopters and stuff. But all right, yeah. See? Next up, we have Camera Launcher, which is a 3 mana for a 2/2 artifact creature construct. It has Exhaust. You can pay 3 mana and put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, and then you create a 1/1 colorless Thopter creature token with flying. Yeah, it looks like another C. At least this one gives us a token, though. That's pretty nice. So I do enjoy when the Exhaust abilities give another card, either drawing it or making a token or doing something like that. So that's cool. But 6 mana for a 3/3 and a 1/1. It's just kind of bad. Probably like a C. I think it's a C because you get a creature, but I don't really like it. It could just be way worse, though. This is like a C-, honestly. I think a lot of these are just... I'm trying to make them seem a little bit better, but I'm not in love with these. They do have to put like a cap on some of these colorless cards just because they don't want them to be in every deck, so yeah. Next up, we have Starting Column, which is 3 mana for an artifact. Start your engines. It's a manalith, so it taps for 1 mana of any color. And at max speed, you can sacrifice this artifact while tapping it, and you get to draw 2 cards, then discard a card. All right, that's pretty cool. Being able to cash it in later for cards and like looting away your lands is nice when you don't need the ramp anymore. Yeah, okay, I like that. It's like a C. I'm still not obsessed. Like I don't love 3 mana rocks. And in draft, we don't need them all that much. So if they don't have other utility, they're not super duper exciting. But the fact that you do get to cash this in for cards later is good. So that bumps it up to a C. I think we're okay playing this card. Next up is Wreck Remover. It's 4 mana for a 3/4 artifact creature construct. It says, when this creature enters or attacks, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard, you gain 1 life, and it has cycling for 2. This is a D. I don't think we care about exiling stuff from our opponent's graveyard. Like, this is a card that's like, hey, you got Catcher Moose, you were trying to exile a bunch of stuff, play this card. And this card sucks. At least you gain a life, maybe, but no. D. Next up, we have Skybox Fairy, which is 5 mana for a 4/4 artifact vehicle with flying. It has crew 2 and cycling for 2 mana. Yeah. Okay. How much do we care about a 5 mana 4/4 flying crew 2? Like, not really. The cycling, it all seems kind of bleh. If it's in your deck, you're not pretty happy. This is a D. I don't really want this in my deck at all. Next up, we have Pit Automaton. It's 2 mana for an 0/4 artifact creature construct. It has Defender. It also has 2 activated abilities. The first one is tap. You can add 2 colorless mana. Spend this mana only to activate abilities, so probably exhausting. And then it also has 2 mana and tap it. And it says, when you activate an exhaust ability this turn, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. Okay, so it does want to go in like the Simic deck and like copy your exhaust stuff is kind of interesting. There's like a world where this is like doing something, I guess. It either helps you actually activate your exhaust stuff or copies them when you have enough mana. The copy part's interesting. I still think this is like a D, though. I think it's just kind of like a win more a little bit. At least it's an 0/4, but it's a D. I don't think we want to play this card. Next up, we have Marshall's Path Cruiser, which is 3 mana for a 6/5 artifact vehicle. It says, when this vehicle enters, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And exhaust is Wooburg. Woof. Okay, here we go. Exhaust white, blue, black, red, green. This vehicle becomes an artifact creature. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. And crew is 5. Okay, this is the only card in the set that cares about having Wooburg. The only one. And yes, it does get you a land, but crew 5 is so much. Like, if you're playing this card just to fix your mana, so it's 3 mana, go get a basic land, put it in your hand? You don't even get to put it on the battlefield? You put it in your hand? 3 mana, put a basic land in your hand, crew 5 for a 6/5. We don't want that. I don't really want that at all. And like the bonus is that, yeah, sure, it's like an 8/7. And it says you pay Wooburg and it just becomes a vehicle creature. It becomes a creature, artifact creature forever. Like it's just gonna be a creature. So it's an 8/7 creature if you have Wooburg. Which is a like fine thing, but it's the only card that cares about this. Like the only one. And it's just not enough. The body's not big enough. I don't like it. I don't really want to put this in my deck. I think this is a trap. This is like a D. Or an F. Like, I really don't like it. I think this is gonna trap people into thinking that Wooburg is a thing, and it's really not. It's so not. Don't play this card. Next up, we have Rover Blades. It's 3 mana for a 2/2 artifact equipment vehicle. Okay, so it's a 3 mana 2/2. It has double strike. It says equipped creature has double strike. The equip cost is 4, and the crew cost is 2. This card is so weird. What the hell? Like, okay, you get a 3 mana 2/2 double strike vehicle, but you have to crew it for 2, or you can equip it to something for 4, and then that creature has double strike. It's throwing me off because the card looks like one of the reconfigure cards from Kamigawa, so it makes me feel like it's a 3 mana 2/2 with double strike, which is like, whoa, that's great. But it's not. It's a vehicle, and it's throwing me off a lot. I do love double strike though. It's so hard not to like double strike. But the equip is so expensive. If anything, this is like a C-. I think this could sneak into decks and actually like beat people up. But it doesn't give any power or toughness. It costs 7 mana. I'm gonna play the first copy, but it's probably a D. It's probably a D, but I'm a sucker for double strike. Next up, we have Racer's Scoreboard, which is 4 mana for an artifact. Start your engines. When this artifact enters, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. 4 mana for that is not good at all. And then it says, at max speed, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of nice. So it does just make all your spells cheaper if you can, get max speed. And being able to draw cards, discard cards... But 4 mana to do that is so bad. And I just don't think we care about the ability. I think this is a D. I think it's another card that's just like, it just doesn't do enough. Don't put it in your deck. I don't like it. D for Racer Scoreboard. Next up, we have Market Bag Walker, which is XX for a 0/0 artifact creature construct at rare. It says this creature enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. You can pay 4 mana to put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And it says when this creature dies, you draw a card for each +1/+1 counter on it. All right, so I like the draw card thing. That's the best thing. That's what this has going for it, right? But the casting cost is XX. So for 2 mana, you get a 1/1. When it dies, you draw 1 card. Okay. Like, would I play that card? Yes. It's kind of like a Helpful Hunter, but like when it dies, you get the thing. Sure. For 4 mana, it's a 2/2. You draw 2 cards when it dies. But a 2/2 body for 4 mana is so brutal. But then it kind of feels like a Solemn Simulacrum, but you're not ramping, but you do get to draw 2 cards when it dies. But I think just like putting a bunch of mana into this thing feels not super great. But if it ever dies, you just get cards. So you're probably playing this in whatever deck you have it in, but I just think it's going to be weaker than like this card. You want this to die, right? Like it's 8 mana for a 4/4. That's so expensive, but you draw 4 cards. So yes, the draw part is the best thing. And if you can at any point make this cheaper, like if you are in Gruul or any of the ones that we've seen where like maybe you want some of the stuff that's like, hey, we make like abilities cheaper or whatever, then do that. But I kind of feel like this is just like a C+. Like we'll put it in our deck. We're happy with that. The 2 mana 1/1 draw card, like that's the worst case scenario, which is like not the worst. But it's also the ceiling feels so expensive. Like I think we're gonna get a little bit too excited with all these X's on this thing, but it's not gonna like beat up your opponents like you hope it will. So let's just say it's a C+, and then move on. Next up is Lifecraft Engine, which is 3 mana for a 4/4 artifact vehicle at rare. It says as this vehicle enters, choose a creature type. Vehicle creatures you control are the chosen creature type in addition to their other types. And it says each creature you control of the chosen type other than this vehicle gets +1/+1, and it has crew 3. All right, so we are currently looking at the it's like what was that? There's like lots of cards that are like this where it's like, hey, I get to be the lord of every creature type or any creature type you want. I'm it. And I think they tend to like make playing like kindred decks or typal decks like not fun, because this just kind of fits in whatever one you have. Like if I play this and say zombies, I'll get +1/+1, and then all my vehicles are zombies and they're big, and okay, that's cool. But it's much more fun to play Lord of the Undead if you ever get it. So just in a fun space, I don't love this. It's a 3-mana 4/4 crew 3, and then you just get to make your other vehicles big, even if you don't have a lot of like other stuff going on through your creatures. Though I think you'd want to be able to try to keep your creatures to a creature type. And the ones we really have is like goblin and zombie, and there's some cats. But besides that, it seems fine. It beefs your vehicles no matter what. So that's one thing. It kind of just says, hey, all your vehicles get +1/+1, and just choose an arbitrary creature type. So there is that. So yeah, I kind of gave this a C or a B+, depending on how many of the creatures you have in your deck. But it could be like human, and it's just a bunch of like Boros pilots, and then you have a bunch of vehicles, and then like all your Boros humans get +1/+1, and all your vehicles get +1/+1. That's probably the best thing it can do. So it's probably like a B then. Yeah, it's like, yeah, cool, all right. It fits in your deck, but it's just it's kind of lame. So maybe it's a B- because it gets the lame factor. I just think that when you're trying to do the kindred thing, the card that just says choose a creature type is just not fun to me. I don't think it's cool. Sorry. Next up is Monument to Endurance. This card is pretty interesting. So it's 3 mana for an artifact at rare. It says whenever you discard a card, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. You can draw a card, you can create a treasure token, or each opponent loses 3 life. Okay, so this is a 3 mana do nothing artifact. At that base of it does literally stone nothing without other cards, this is like a D or an F. Like, it's just terrible. But if you do happen to be in a deck like the blue-red deck or the blue-black deck where you're like cycling things or discarding cards, it goes up dramatically. I think it becomes like definitely a B, because every time you cycle a card, you draw a card for cycling and you draw a card here. And you can do it on their turn, or you can try to move it around so that it's whenever you need. Or you're attacking with like your like swordfish guy, the swashbuckler that draws 3 cards and discards 2 cards, and your opponent just loses 3 life and you draw a card, or you make a treasure token and get to cast another card or whatever. Like starting to just like dome your opponent for 3. That seems pretty cool. So I really like this in that deck. I think it's just probably a B in that deck because it doesn't have like a loot ability on it, which would make this card go way over the top, which is why they didn't put it on there. But I think this is pretty interesting. So, you know, it's either you want it in your deck and it's amazing, or it's the worst card you've ever seen and you want to rip it to shreds. So, yeah, but don't pick this early. Definitely don't pick this early. It's only good if you're in that deck. And I think there's only like 2 decks that care about it. So be very careful with this card. You have to be doing the thing, you know. Next up, we're in the Mythics with the Aetherspark. It is 4 mana for a 4 loyalty legendary artifact planeswalker equipment at Mythic. It has a ability that says, as long as the Aetherspark is attached to a creature, the Aetherspark can't be attacked, and has, whenever equipped creature deals combat damage during your turn, put that many +1/+1 counters on the Aetherspark. Sorry, put that many loyalty counters, my apologies, on the Aetherspark. It has a +1 that says attach the Aetherspark to up to 1 target creature you control. Put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. -5, draw 2 cards. And -10, add 10 mana of any one color. All right, so it is a planeswalker. But it's a planeswalker that does not a whole lot without anything else on the battlefield. So you need... If you can't just put this card... Like, if you can't equip this to a creature the turn that it comes down, it's pretty bad. You just kind of plus it and goes to 5, and you just pray that you can draw 2 cards next turn and just get rid of it. If you have a creature, you get to put it on that thing, and then you get to like trade off with something, and then you get a ton of loyalty, which is great. But it is kind of annoying that you have to wait 2 turns before you actually get to draw the cards or make the mana, because you have to use your loyalty ability on the turn that you play it to put it on a creature. So not till the following turn can you actually like activate the stuff that's good. I still think you want to play this card. I don't think this is a card that you're like, oh, don't play this. This is bad. It's also definitely a good mini game for your opponent to try to figure out whether it's worth it to kill it or not. It is an artifact, so it can be blown up in a bunch of different ways. So that is kind of annoying. That probably makes it go down. I think this is probably like a B minus B range. Definitely not an A. It doesn't make any tokens itself. It can't protect itself. You have to have a board or this just stone dies. But yeah, I think it's really cool design. Just maybe not the slam dunk that a lot of other Planeswalkers are in Limited. This one's a bit weird. But if you can draw 2 cards off of it, it is amazing. So, or 10 mana is also cool, but I don't know if you're gonna super need that. But I don't know. It's pretty cool. But yeah, just don't get too excited, I'd say. Same thing goes with this next card. Radiant Lotus is 6 mana for an artifact at Mythic. It says tap, sacrifice 1 or more artifacts. Doesn't have to be this one, just 1 or more. It says choose a color. Target player adds 3 mana of the chosen color for each artifact sacrificed this way. This is an F, like an F minus. This is terrible in draft. Pretty cool for like other formats, probably. It has the word Lotus in it, so that's always exciting. But you do not want to get to 6 mana and then start sacrificing artifacts to make mana. Like, this cannot be the top end of your deck, right? Like, you just don't want this. Like, it doesn't do anything. It does nothing. Yeah. Not great. Not great. Next up, we are moving into the special guests. So these are the last 2 special guest cards of the entire set. They are both colorless. They're both artifacts. And we don't see these special guests very often, but they're still in the draft format, so it's important to talk about them. First up is Chrome Mox. It's an artifact that costs 0 mana. Cool. And it has Imprint. When this artifact enters, you may exile a non-artifact, non-land card from your hand. And it also has an activated ability. You can tap it, add 1 mana of any of the exiled card's colors. I don't think we want to play this card at all. This is an F for sure. You're going to 2 for 1 yourself. So you're going to play this card, exile a card from your hand to get up on mana. Draft is not important. Like, draft doesn't care enough about that. I don't think. Like, we just don't care. Like, mulliganing so we get 1 extra land on 1 turn. I just don't think we want to do this. Like, sure, it, like, buffs up your artifact count. But, like, if you're just playing it for 0 and not imprinting something on it and just does literal nothing, what is this for? Like, I don't think you should play this. You could draft it to have it in your collection, but don't put it in your deck. That's what I'll say. All right, up next is a Sky Sovereign Console Flagship. So this is 5 mana for a 6/5 legendary artifact vehicle. It has flying. It says whenever it enters or attacks, it deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls, and the crew cost is 3. Yes, this card's an A. We love this card. I think it's still fantastic. Like, it was really sweet in Kaladesh, and it's still really sweet. You get to slam this thing, deal 3 damage to something. It's crew 3, it flies, it has 6 power. It blows up so many things that try to block it. You can't really block this thing because of the fact that, well, number 1 is huge, but number 2, it just shoots your thing. Like, you just can't do it. This thing's awesome. It's colorless. If you see this in your pack 1, pick 1, like, slam it. Slam it, slam it. I guess that means it's like an A+, right? I was saying A, but no, this is an A+ card. You want this one a lot. Thank God we ended on a high note. Holy moly. We are going to be moving into the lands, because lands are obviously important. And first up, we have Avishkar Raceway, which is a common land. It has Start Your Engines. Ho, ho, ho. Ho, 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 baby. It taps for a colorless mana, but at max speed, you can pay 3 mana and tap it to discard a card and draw a card. So this is awesome. Starting our engines on turn 1, or the literal first card that we play in the entire game, that's really great. Just being like, all right, we're off to the races. We're going. We're going, buddy. I think that's pretty powerful, and it does help a lot because there are a good amount of cards that do start your engines in the set. You know, there are. But if you can start it without having to worry about all the other ones, so you just have this, that's great. The only downside is that if you ever have any of like the two mana, two colored, multicolored cards, that's kind of hard because you kind of want to play those on turn 2, but this just stops you from doing that. Though luckily, I think a lot of those actually do start your engines anyway. So if you are playing a more, it's interesting because if you're playing an aggressive deck that has a lot of colored pips and those 2 mana cost things, it makes it hard to play this card. But your aggressive decks do want to play this card so that you can start your engines. I think it's really interesting. I think everyone does want to start your engines, and being able to loot on your land is a really strong ability. I like this one at common. I think this is great. This is like a C+. You're not going to take this super early, but having 1 copy in your deck is going to like help your deck a lot, I think. Just be careful in your splashing stuff, right? Be careful playing too many of these. I think 1 is great, but 2 is probably too many. Next up, we have Amonkhet Raceway. Same thing. It's a land, it's uncommon, and it has start your engines. It taps for a colorless, and at max speed, you can tap it and target creature gains haste until end of turn. Also pretty sweet. Like, this is the same type of thing we were talking about before with all the start your engine stuff. But giving your creature haste is pretty cool because it might slow you down because of your colors if you played this early. But then if you get to max speed, you get to, like, get that speed back. It's kind of like you started a little bit late and then you got to go a little bit faster. It feels like a racing type thing that's tied into the set, obviously. So I think this one's great. I like it a lot. But also C+. I think all these are pretty good. Next up, we have Muragonda Raceway, which is the rare one that also starts your engines. It taps for colorless, and at max speed, it taps for 2. That's cool. It like pumps things up. You get to like tap for 2 colorless mana. That's great. I think this will probably make bigger splashes in other formats. The tapping for 2 mana after max speed could be pretty helpful. I'm never gonna like turn it down, right? But I still think it's a C+. Maybe it's just a C. I kind of like the other ones a little bit better. This rare one is a little bit less exciting to me. And I really like the loot one, so that's kind of nice because the common one I'm going to see the most, and this one I'm going to see the least, and I'd rather see the common one the most. So that's kind of how that works. That's great. These are all pretty cool. I think we're going to like these in our decks for sure. Next up, we have Night Market, which is a common land. It says this land enters tapped. As it enters, choose a color, and it taps for 1 of the chosen color, and it has cycling for 3. The fact that it has cycling is pretty good. I do like that part. Cycling for 3 is kind of expensive. And it's a land that fixes your mana, but like kind of sucks at it because you have to choose a color, and it doesn't have start your engines on it. I think this is kind of like a D. I'm not super happy to have this card. Cycling does push it up to like a D+, maybe. Like he's like, okay, sure, I have one of these, and like maybe there's a situation where I already have my splash color or whatever, or too many lands, and I get to cycle this away. It's the only land that cycles, so there is that, but I still don't really like it very much. But maybe I'm underestimating the cycling. Maybe it should be like a C-, but I'm just going to stick with don't put this in your deck for now. And then we have 3 cycles of lands that are going to be pretty nice. Bloodfell Caves. We have the Gain lands. They're back. They're in a bunch of sets. These are super, super helpful. It's just a land that enters tapped, and when it enters, you gain a life, and it taps for 1 of 2 colors. All 10 of them are in the set. These are awesome. You're going to like these. These are definitely like C's, C+. Like, this is a sweet land. Like, you just want these in your deck. It helps your mana so much. Don't underestimate how important it is to have like 1 or 2 of these in your deck of your colors. And it also helps you splash a bit if we are interested in doing that this set. This is the reason why we can do it, because of these gain lands. I've been saying it through all the different like videos and stuff, but I'm always happy to see these. Like, when there's a set that doesn't have common dual lands, like Bloomburrow and things like that, you can feel it. Where you're like, ooh, buddy, this is... Yep, I really miss them. I miss them a lot. They're super great. Super, super helpful. Next up, we have the Road Cycle. So there's 5 of these, 1 of every color, and they all do the same thing. But we're looking at Country Roads, Take Me Home land. It is a uncommon. It says this land enters tapped unless you control a mount or vehicle. That's pretty cool. I do like that text on the thing. There's one of each color, so this one taps for white. And it has an activated ability, 1 and a white, tap it, sacrifice this land, and you can create a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token with all the pilot stuff, and you can do that at sorcery speed. So a land that comes into play untapped if you have a vehicle, and you can make a pilot for it right away in the late game, that's pretty cool. And early on, it just like actually taps for your colors. These are pretty sweet. These are like C's. Like, getting the creature is going to be super helpful and does help the situation where I kind of anticipating them to be a lot of situations where you don't have enough creatures to crew all your stuff, and then you're trying to figure out what to do. These lands are going to be super helpful for that. Yeah, I like these a lot. But just like a C, I think I'd rather fix my colors than have the as an extra ability. But yeah, so I think I picked gain lands over these roads, but roads are also kind of cool. Last card of the entire format is the Cycle of Verges. We're getting them, finally! We got the first 5 Verges in Duskmourn, and these are coming into, this is mainly constructed play that we're excited about the Verges. So we're looking at Sunbillow Verge, which is a rare land. It taps for white, and it can tap for red, but you can only activate it if you control a mountain or a plains. So it always taps for white, but if you have a plains or a mountain, you get a tap for red. These are great. These are really good lands. Even in draft, they're nice. You don't have to take them extremely highly. I still think they're going to be really good, though. If you ever listen to my podcast, The Arena Regulars, we talk about these lands or just this concept of like our no pass list, and these are definitely on that. I'm going to be taking these just for my constructed collection. I'm going to want them a lot. And they're great. This is super helpful. And in our draft format, like maybe, you know, you're not going to take it first probably if you're just drafting. But when they come around, you can snap these up, and they're going to be really helpful to your mana base. Coming into play untapped is huge, buddy. Like, huge. So, super, super exciting. Well, folks, that is what I think about all the cards from Aetherdrift. If you haven't like listened to any of the other reviews for the set, go check out all the videos. They are popping up in different places on the channel. Also, please follow and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. Tell me all the cards I'm wrong about or I'm right about or whatever. It means a lot to me, and I would really appreciate it if you could help me grow the channel. So yeah. Anyway, folks, thank you all very much, and this has been my Aetherdrift set review, and I'll see you next time. Bye.